Well, hello, everybody. It's good to have you here live on From Stress to Success with today's fantastic guest, Eric Rogell. I just want to tell you a little bit about Eric before we get into this fantastic talk we're going to have today. Eric is the host of Warriors, Lovers, Kings, and Heroes podcast, producer of the Complete Man Summit, a best-selling author, and a mentor creating bold, inspirational leaders who want to ignite motivation, vision, and purpose in their teams. As a top men's lifestyle journalist, he's traveled around the world writing for major publications, including Discovery Channel and Men's Fitness magazine. And he's interviewed hundreds of men, from celebrities to athletes to entrepreneurs to military vets, getting them to dive deep into their stories of what made them the men they are today, giving him valuable insights that collectively paint a picture of what great leaders are made of. And Eric has made it his mission to get men the tools, tips, strategies, and intel they need to be the best men they can be, to step into their greatness as leaders, husbands, and fathers, and to teach them how to create other strong leaders. Yet, with that said, everything Eric will share today will also benefit women as well. So, Eric, thank you so much for being here.
Tom, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be here. Love what you're doing.
Thank you. You know, there's so much that you're doing and so much you've learned, so much you've shared, written about, that I'm not even sure where to start. So I'm going to let you kick this off as to where would we start before we get into this mountain of information you have available to share today.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it all kind of started with my own journey. And I think everything that we're going to talk about today, like I said, it's called the mythical mindset. It really comes down to our own hero's journey. And I went on my own hero's journey, started it years and years ago. I tell the story about being raised by a single mother. My parents divorced when I was 12. So my dad, was there, but I was raised primarily by my mom. And mom raised me. My joke is that mom raised me like a veal, right? I was raised to be very soft and tender and not get bumped or bruised or anything. And it was all about fear and anxiety and being afraid of everything. And all this kind of stuff was going to hurt me and kill me and all of that. So I was raised to be very, very cautious. But as a boy, and then growing into my teens, it just didn't feel right. And I thought, there's more to this. I feel like I want to get bumped and bruised. I want to, bang around and roll around and play sports and do all these things. And I started down this path to find my own kind of journey to manhood, we'll say. And I looked for guides and mentors. And along that way, I met some really, really terrific men who became an incredible part of my life. I'm still on the journey. We're all on the journey. And, looking at that, Joseph Campbell, I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell. He writes about myth and that incredible PBS series he did with Bill Moyers. And when you look at it, we're all on this journey, Tom. I mean, we all have a hero story. And that's kind of where I came up with the Warriors, Lovers, Kings, and Heroes. And when I do things like, I know you have women in your audience, which is phenomenal. And so I do Warriors, Lovers, Kings, Queens, and Heroes. Those are the archetypes that we kind of pass through as we're on our journey, and we go in and out of them at different stages. But I found that having these challenges, facing these challenges, having incredible, spectacular failures like I've had, is really what kind of gets us down this path. So that's kind of what led me to the work that I do in a very quick nutshell. So hopefully that kind of can get us leading into where you want to go today.
Yeah, sure. When you said, intuitively, basically, knowing there was something more you needed to learn, you needed to get out of that little box that you were placed into, yeah? Like those helicopter parents that mean well, but we're not growing and developing. So to find your manhood, as it were, was really to find your human independence. You're growing into the adult that you were becoming and finding out what that would include. And I'm sure there are specifics geared toward the male and specifics toward the female, but yet some commonalities amongst any person doing exactly what you were seeking to do, yeah?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I think the main thing is, Tom, when you say that, Independence and individuality is phenomenal. I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's one thing that many people forget. And what I tell with the men that I train is, if you look at every story, every myth, every story, every journey, in order for you to become the king has to die, right? That's why we have in all these great myths. And even like today, when we look at, comic books and superhero movies that are very popular right now, the father, the parents are typically gone. And it's because that's part of the journey for us to go. Now, it doesn't mean that our king has to physically die. It could mean that in our minds, the king is gone and we are on our own, and we have to journey and become our own king. So really, really glad that you brought that up. And if you notice in all these stories, and again, this goes for women too, everyone that I've interviewed over the years, look back on their biggest challenges, their most incredible, spectacular, blazing failures as really the biggest, most important moment in their growth and in their journey. And I look back at some of mine as well. And when you do that, and you look at, what did I learn from this? What did I gain from this? What strengths, what abilities, what did I find out about myself?
Mm-hmm.
What did I learn that I can bring going forward? So that doesn't matter if you're male or female, right? That's just a general, thing that we can do. And I found that really, looking at those, is the one that we do. So when we are helicopter parents, like you just said, or when we even in a leadership role on a team or in a business, when we seek to protect, and that's really what we're doing it from, is this protection, people from these challenges, from these failures, from what we in ourselves perceive as maybe pain or hurt. We're really doing them a disservice, because that is where the greatest growth happens. And that's the one thing that I've seen, universally across the board. So I would say that's the biggest lesson, that independence that you spoke about. You've got to kill off the king, kill off the queen, whether it just be in your own psyche, just so you can move forward into that role, because you can't until they're gone. And then the second is to embrace these challenges, these failures, as fuel for moving forward, as education, as experience, valuable experience that you can use moving forward.
Well, isn't that really the contradiction? And it's such where people are looking to protect those from the challenges, the adversities, the trauma, whatever word you want to place on it, but yet it's impossible to have growth if you're comfortable. It's impossible to have growth unless you're challenged. It's impossible, right? So there's the contradiction. But let me ask you something, where you work with a lot of people that are the king, let's say, the captain of the team that's a celebrity athlete, or the CEOs. So with the CEOs who are the king, what do you find in some of the struggles that they're having that you're working with?
Wow, that's a great question.
Position, right? Now they're the king. So what are some of the struggles they're having being that?
Yeah, a great question. I mean, it comes, there's a few of them. I'll grab a couple just to talk. One is that fear of failure. In many of them, it's that fear of, if I fail as a leader, or we fail on this project, it reflects on me. And the issue, that I go over with them again is just the same thing, is it's not really a failure if you're looking at it as an experience. So what can you do and move forward? I mean, I worked at a company one time, and their motto was fail forward fast. Get the mistakes out of the way. Don't be afraid of them. Do it and just keep moving forward fast. And I loved that. And I never forgot that. So fail forward fast. And I work with them on that, is don't be afraid to make mistakes. I've told, guys, when I've taken over teams, hey, look, we're going to break some stuff. At the beginning, we're just going to break stuff. We're going to try things, and it's the only way to learn. So it's getting them over that fear of failure, wrong, mistake. That's the one thing. And being seen as wrong, that was a big one for me for a long time. Was I have this incredible I'm working on it, this incredible know-it-all identity that I cannot be wrong. I have to show the people that are around me, that I'm working with, I'm always right. I always have the answer, right? And that's limiting. It's very, very limiting. When you get over that and you're like, hey, look, I don't know the answer, or maybe I was wrong. Let's explore. It opens up this whole new world of possibilities, right? And it gets you out of that comfort zone that you were talking about. I call it, the comfort zone complacency syndrome, where you're just like, this is good. I'm fine. I don't want to go any further.
It's a rut.
Hmm.
It's just a rut, right?
Yeah, and you have to break free of that. And that comes with breaking things, making mistakes, testing stuff. I mean, I worked for a long time in the online marketing world and direct marketing world, even before there was online. And we would test everything and you put stuff out looking for it to fail.
Hmm.
Because when that happens, you learn so much, you get such valuable intel from that, that you move forward. So that's
I
really
can
what we're.
interrupt you right there because
Sure.
there's such an alignment with from stress to success and what you're saying now. And fail forward fast is trial and error. And the sooner you put it into trial and exhaust the error, the sooner you'll get to what the solution is, right? Or the answer or the whatever, the better outcome. So the perception is one of failure. Now, is there failure? No, there's trial and error. And that has never changed throughout life. If we were older and started to learn to walk, you probably wouldn't learn to walk because you'd fall and go, yeah, I'm not getting up. I'm going to stay right here. But it was intuitive, instinctive to trial and error your way. That's the scientific method, right?
Mhm.
Or the
Yeah.
old Edison story about how many times you failed. I didn't fail once. So without, as you guide people to do, and you say break things without taking risk, calculated risk,
Mhm.
reasonable risk, but without putting it into action. As a musician, I remember once I had done an album and toured and all that with a rock band in my young 20s. And when I got out of the record industry, I got some buddies together and very quickly I got us a gig and they were like, hey, we're not ready. I go, no, no, no. We could get so good here in the basement and go on stage and all the variables change and it's not going to be the same. So we're going to get tight live as we're getting paid. Well, it's the same thing in the work environment, isn't it? We're going to get tight live. We're going to improve as we're moving forward and getting paid. And
Mhm.
until you do, like you say, fast, fail forward fast, if you don't do it quickly, well, it's going to happen. It's just going to happen down the road a little bit. So, what kind of stress responses are you seeing in people when you tell them that? Because that's what this is all about, from stress to success, where we get the stress out of the way because of those perceptions, because of those limiting thoughts, in order to then achieve those successful outcomes. How do you help them around that?
Well, it almost is self-relieving, Tom, if I can kind of
Mhm.
invent a word here.
Right.
When you think about it, when you remove the stigma of failure, from trial and error, as you put it, it's a mindset thing, and that's why and we call this mythical mindset. It's because when you look at any great myth, any great story where the hero eventually becomes the hero, ultimately becomes the hero, it is as a result of facing these challenges, overcoming them, learn, and some they don't overcome. Some, get the best of them and they learn when they hit the next one, they know what they're doing. And so when you remove that variable, the stress almost goes away. I'll tell you a very quick story
Sure.
that kind of illustrates this a little bit. Um, yeah, and I'm going to date myself here a little bit, but years and years and years ago, I had a boss that I was working for, and he and his family had gotten very into rollerblading. This is when rollerblading was just
Okay. Yeah.
becoming like the big thing, right? And he invited the girl that I was dating at the time and I to come rollerblade with him and his family. And I wanted to impress him, so I got rollerblades and I practiced for because I'd never done it before ever, and I practiced for like a week before. And I was in the parking lot of the building where I was living, and I was just committed. I am not going to fall. Falling is failure. I'm not going to fall. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to fall. And I noticed that I didn't fall for the first couple of times, but I didn't get very far. I was really stiff and awkward and like afraid, and I wouldn't go fast and I wouldn't try certain things. And it really kind of hindered me a lot. I was locked up and I was under this stress because I was like, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. Well, one day when I was out there, I fell.
Hmm.
And it wasn't that big a deal. I was like, oh, okay, well, I fell. I broke that. All right. I already broke the seal. It's
Right.
over. I've fallen. I can keep going. And I noticed that after that, I was so much more relaxed because I'd gotten it over with.
Yep.
So much more relaxed. And I could do it. And my abilities accelerated because of it. I was no longer stiff and, herky jerky and afraid of falling. I'd fallen and I went, no big deal. I just and get back up and keep going. And so to me, that's how I look at this when I work with these people is, once you fail a couple times, and, I was out in San Francisco a few years ago as part of a tech accelerator program. And one of the things I learned out there is the venture capitalists who look to invest in companies that are just starting out, they look to see if the founders have had failures before. And they actually much prefer that you have failures under your belt than you've always succeeded, because they want to know you have hit this adversity and you knew what to do. You learned from those mistakes and then are able to move forward. So I think when you remove that stigma of failure and you look at it as, like you said, trial and error, or for me, it's just fuel for success.
It's the life process.
It is. It's just part of that whole, and that's why it's in every single myth, every single great story that we read. The hero had to go through these incredible challenges. I mean, look at like Hercules with the 7 challenges that he had to go through, Samson, and all of these trials that they have to go. There's a reason that those are so important to the story. It's because we have to face our own, and they're critical to our growth and moving forward.
Just in this conversation, I just grabbed another approach to the word fail. We're just going to change one letter. You're just going to fall a few times and you'll get back up. There's no fail. You just fall, and I've been part of a startup company for, it's been 3.5 years now, almost 4 years. And I know exactly what you're talking about, because investors, they figure if you haven't crashed, if you haven't had a suck it up cupcake, then when you do, this is going to crumble.
Yeah.
So they want to know that you're a little tenacious. They want to know you've been challenged, right? All right. So the people that are watching, I'm sure that they have questions that come up. They can go ahead. All of you that are watching, you can go ahead and comment and tell us about what you consider your own failures and how maybe we can discuss working around that, because everything is perception. I mean, my game is about the mindset, what's between your ears. When you manage what's between your ears, then you manage everything. And it's all perception. So, it's very curious. There was somebody earlier in my profession who said, even when things are directed towards you, how do you not let it get in? And I wrote back, you need to be part of the Dilligaf Club, Dilligaf. And anyone that doesn't know what that is, well, you can go learn on your own. I'm sure you can Google it and find out. But when you have that kind of an attitude, like, I don't care, because here's the truth, folks. Whenever you're concerned about being perceived as a failure, people who talk. And then when you succeed, they'll say, oh, he thinks he's something now. People who don't talk don't. So you see, it isn't going to change anything that's going on. It's just learning how to deflect it, not care, not giving a, and just moving on, knowing they mean nothing to me really. Because, what they talk about opinions and that goes on and on and on. So tell me how you go about, well, you've gone about a lot of transition, because unfortunately, you didn't have a lot of that trial and error in the get-go. You had to wait till you were older, where I was nothing but all that trial and error, coming from nothing but not much and no support other than good parents who just told you to suck it up and go make it happen. So how did you find your niche in order to stop listening to others, in order to start creating perception that that doesn't even matter and that these are not failures?
Yeah, what you're talking about, Tom, there is really important. That's being self-referral versus outer referral.
Yeah.
Right? Having that confidence in yourself, that self-confidence. That's part of that mindset. And, I talk about, warrior, lover, king, hero. And that's part of the warrior mindset is, I have a mission. I need to get something done. I'm on that mission. Everything else is noise and details.
Mm-hmm.
So these people coming at you, what I had to realize, because I was very outer referral growing up. And that's kind of how I was raised. It was all about everyone else.
Yeah.
And optics and everyone else's opinion and how you looked and how you came across. And I had to get over that, because it was like, what, F it. I'm just going to, I'm doing what I'm doing. And if they're not on board, they're not on board. And the thing with that is, you have to look at where people are coming from. So I always look at the source. And if someone is coming out with this, attacking, coming at you, I've actually, and this was one of the hardest things that I had to learn. And one of my mentors taught it to me, and he'll put his boot in my butt if I don't stick to this, but it is looking at the source. And his whole thing is, if they're coming after you and they're attacking you and they're trying to tear you down, you must be doing something amazing.
Right.
Because it just drives this fear in other people and it hits their ego.
Yep.
So when their ego goes into overdrive and they think something's coming for them, that's when you know you're doing good. So I actually look at things now and say, wow, if nobody's attacking me, I must not be pushing hard enough.
Right.
I must not be making enough of a statement if they're not coming. And that is about being self-referral. And one of the things, Tom, that kind of helped me with this is you'll know that in everything that I talk about, besides the warrior, lover, king, and hero archetypes, is these what I call the sacred 7 core values. And I believe that everyone should live with core values. And the ones that I have are courage, honesty, integrity, commitment, duty, honor, and love. And courage is the first, because if you don't have courage, you can't move into the other ones.
Right.
But one of those was honor. And for me, this was interesting because I was one of those people who would look at, especially early in my career as a journalist, I'd have to interview all these successful people. And I would look and go, well, you know what? Screw that guy because he's doing better than I am. And how dare he be so successful? And I'm not as successful as he is. Mm-hmm. And so screw him and get angry about it. Now I look at it where I honor that in other people. When I meet someone who is very successful and I honor that, I look at it with, awe and admiration and respect and wow, like how did they get there? I want to know their story now, which is how the podcast came about. Yeah. But when you can do that, you can also move much more, forward, faster because you're not holding yourself back. Your own ego is not getting in your way. So again, getting back to what you were asking, being self-referral, being that warrior and going, I am on mission. This is me moving towards whatever my vision is, my purpose is. Everything else is just going to pop off because it's just noise and distraction. And I'm right here on purpose. So that's really a big way to help that is you got to look in here for yourself first.
True. Absolutely. Now we're going to get back to the others that you mentioned and also the archetypes you talk about and also a wonderful comment that one of our viewers had made. But right now we're going to take a short break, folks, and jump to a commercial and come right back.
Are you a CEO or an executive suffering from unbearable stress? Do you feel like you're burning out and your leadership skills are suffering? There's good news. You're only 12 weeks away from turning it all around. The Master Visionary Coaching Program gives you all the resources to do so with less effort than it takes to load your groceries into your car. The Master Visionary Coaching Program is by application only. Apply now at mastervisionary.com.
Fantastic. Welcome back, everybody. Now, this gentleman I know online rather well, but the name I may not pronounce correctly. Venkatramvasi. His comment is so perfect and it sums up what we're saying so short, and yet it's a common phrase. But you see, all these phrases all mean the same thing, right? He says, no failure, only feedback. So the feedback isn't from other people. The feedback isn't from a mentor. The feedback is from the experience. And without the experience, there's no learning, right? And we know experience is the greatest teacher. So
yeah, I just have one comment on that. I love that. And it brings up something. My mother used to say, experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted.
Right. Exactly.
Right? And so I always looked at it that way, like, okay, I didn't get the outcome I was looking for, but I did get some experience, and how can I use that going forward?
Right.
Oh yeah, I love that. Thanks for making that comment. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And before we get back into what you were talking about, there was something else you mentioned there about other people being successful. Mm-hmm. And I remember, Jesus, I was at a seminar, it was about 1,200 people. And people were talking about, I could overhear people talking about, oh, that person and this person, oh, I know that person, oh, and you could hear the disgust, the disdain. And what I wanted to, and sometimes you got to back off and not tell anyone anything. That which you don't like, you'll never get. that which you put down, you're never going to achieve. So here I am wanting to be successful. Why would I say, well, that jerk's successful? Well, there's a disconnect immediately, right? So when you flip the script, I'm sure you were able to then experience more successful outcomes, because that limiting thought creates that blocking stress and also the blocking energy. But yet, once you flipped the script, you were able to, I'm sure, experience the change in the results you were seeking.
Oh, absolutely. And it came from something that I was taught a long time ago, and it's been said, I don't know how many different ways and times, but what was shown to me was that if you resist somebody, if you've got resist on somebody, they have the most to teach you.
Right.
And you have to go and seek this person out and sit down. And I found that usually what we resist in other people is something we resist in ourselves.
Right. They're the reflection.
Of course, they're just a mirror of us, right? We're just all mirrors of each other. So that's the other thing. Like when people start hating on me, and I don't really, that self-referral is they're just seeing something in themselves they don't like. So I have to look at it in myself. If I come across someone and I go, wow, really, this guy bothers me, man. I go in and I look, what is it about them that really bothers me in me? And that's some serious growth opportunity right there. I will tell you, Tom, it's been one of the biggest ones for me is, I've been in workshops and seminars where I have to sit directly next to somebody who drives me insane. And at the end of it, I'm like, all right, I get it. I see it. It's that in me. And then when you shift that in yourself, you'll see it in other people. You'll be like, wow, she's really not that bad, or he's not that bad a guy. And it's just because it all came from here. Yeah, that is the biggest thing. So I always find when you have that big resist on somebody, they're the ones that have the most to teach you. So go at them, talk to them, have a conversation with them, and listen, be honest with them. That's the first two of our sacred seven, courage and honesty. You have to have the courage to approach that person and be honest and say, hey, listen, I got this resist on you and there's something that's really been bothering me. I'd love to have a conversation with you about it. And they won't take it personally. I've found that 99% of the time, they're actually almost flattered that you want to come have that conversation, but it moves both of you forward. But I find for myself, selfishly, it moves me forward faster. So absolutely do that.
Right on. So here's the beauty of doing a live show. Taz is watching and he's got a question for us, or comment, and he writes this: a lot of setbacks and all I do is work hard. Well, first, my brother, working hard is not the answer. Working smarter is. But a work ethic is fantastic. And it looks like the life always throws me back. So the lack of success, it's depressing me. I'll let you comment first, Eric. And let Taz.
Yeah, there's a lot there, Taz. There really is. And that's funny. I will tell you, that's where I have been for most of my life. And it's funny because I'll talk to some of my mentors that I have and I go, but you don't understand. I'm going backwards. And they'll just look at me and
they laugh at you.
They laugh because they're like, you're not going backwards, dude. You're doing this. You're just moving forward constantly. And I always equate it to like the stock market or any of the markets where you see like, ups and downs and ups and downs. But if you look at it over time, it actually does this. It only feels like you're going backwards or going down. So there's that part of it first. The other thing, Taz, is what I've learned is take a look at all of what you're calling failures or setbacks. Look at all of those. And then really take a deep look at, what did I learn from this?
Was the value?
What did I really learn from this? What was the lesson that I have that I could move forward? Listen, I've had business partners in my career that were quote unquote horrible. They weren't horrible. They were teaching me a lesson. And I look back at what they taught me and I wasn't happy about it at the time. And it felt like we were failing and it was a struggle and I was banging my head against the wall. But now, years later, I look at it and I go, all right, so now I know what I'm not looking for in a business partner. Now I know what I'm looking for in an ideal business partner. And that could be a business partner or a joint venture partner or somebody I'm just doing a project with. I know exactly what I'm looking for. And that comes from that failure. The second thing, Taz, is the difference between being and doing. And that's when you said, you're working, and you're struggling. That was my life for so long. And some of my mentors had told me, Eric, stop and sit back and just be it. And I'm like, you don't understand. I've got to write this and do this and put this, and that won't happen. And what if I don't? And that's where the stress and the strain and everything starts to come crashing down. And when you step back and you look and you go, all right, I just need to be for a minute. If I want to be successful, I'll just say, online entrepreneur. Well, who do I have to be in order to do that? What are successful people in that position? Who are they being? How are they being? And then be that. And I'll tell you a very, very quick story. And I'm sure people have heard this before, but it's about the two guys that have to chop down trees, and they only have 8 hours to chop down this tree, and they're given axes. And the one guy takes his axe and it's kind of dull, and he's whacking at the tree for like 7 hours just because he's got to cut the tree down. So he's just hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting. And the other guy takes his axe and he spends 7 hours sharpening that axe, just making it razor sharp. Yeah. And then it's just boom, 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 a couple of strikes and the tree goes down. Yeah. So which one was working harder? Yeah. Which one was working smarter? Which one was being? And if I look at that, the beingness, Taz, is sharpening your axe every day. What do you have to be in order to achieve what it is that you want to achieve and get out of the struggle and the stress and the doing, which for me, like I said, because, I love the doing. Right. Big struggle for me to do that. And when I have my mentors, they'll go, hey, Friday, we're going to do an all-day session. We're going to train all day Friday. I'm like, dude, you don't understand. I've got to, and then I end up doing it. Not doing it. I end up, going into the session and just being and then and exploring. And I'm like, wow, now when I get home, I can achieve so much more because I've sharpened that axe for those 8 hours. So those are my two comments, Tom. I'll let you take it.
Eric, Taz, I'm going to let you share a little bit more, but I want to say to you that I used to hear from my dad, hey, helps you build character. And I said, my character's built. I'm done building my character. And I'll tell you what, sometimes doing nothing is doing a lot. So that's the being. But Chaz, I want you to please come on in and elaborate on this a little bit and tell us a little bit more about the situation you're in and maybe what you're gathering from what Eric just shared even.
Well, I'm a truck driver. And like I say, usually we work 14 hours a day. Mm-hmm. And I always try to be independent as a one operator. Somehow I like it. I like to build business, And but what happened is when they start to get a good load, good job, a good work, and something happened, like the truck break down. And I lost the contract, and always set me back. I'm been trucking for 17 years, and so far I did not meet the success I wish to have, like build a fleet, or have more trucks, have another drivers. I just can't. Something, and for more money that I make, the money comes one door and leaves on the other door. So looks like, it for more that I make money, more I spend, and on the top of everything.
Let me address something there. And by the way, Gene just mentioned how it's like the Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. It was the training, not the fighting, just the training, the being. But here's how ironic your story is. I saw almost every state in the USA through a tractor trailer window as a kid. My dad drove cross country, tractor trailer driving. Oh, so I know what it's like to put the legs down. I know it's like to smell diesel. I know it's like to grind 10 gears because I drove it a little bit myself. But you're right on the edge, because the biggest mistake or block people have, the biggest lack they have, is they don't have a vision. They don't have, well, what would get me out of this, right? So you already know it's to not just be the operator, but be owner operator, and then to scale, correct? Right. So then the answer would be Where do you find that information? Who can you sit and talk with and find out the step procedure or different ways to go about it? Sometimes there's not one way.
Right.
Have you done that?
No, no. What I believe, like for example, I listen to your tapes since when you used to sell CDs when we were in Urban. Try
wow.
to clear the
From way
clutter.
back. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. But something happened with me. I think I have some kind of self-sabotage. When I start to listen to tapes, I start to feel good. Something always happens that prevent me to keep listening. Self-sabotage. And I'm not listening today. I'm too tired. I'll listen tomorrow, and then we stop to listen. That's how I know I'm working against myself. I believe in the power of the mind. I believe you drag to you what you thinking. So I like to train my mind to meet the right person, to meet the right people.
You just did.
To
Taz, I'm going
meet
to
the
stop
right
you. I'm
people
going to stop you,
to put
Taz.
me on the path.
But listen, I'm going to stop you
Okay.
because you just met the right person, even though you've been listening to me for years. Now, here's the deal. The right person is you, and you're correct. Self-sabotage, no matter how much information you get, and it's one of the big parts of all my programs, especially from Stress to Success. And what I'm going to do is I want you to email me, tomnicoli@gmail.com. I'm going to jump on a call with you, and we're going to talk about this one-on-one.
Okay. I
Okay?
appreciate it. I
Right.
always wanted to meet you.
Yeah. You drop me an email and drop me an email. I'll even reply my number, and you and I will get on a call, and I'm going to share some of what's happening because it's a deeper issue here, and it's most common. It's so most common that there's a lack of deserving of worthiness, and from our history and all. Not me. What I learned was this. Here's what I learned, and here's how I put it to people. When people say, well, once I was questioned when I was back in, I'm talking triple decker Goodwill Hunting type living back in Everett, Mass. And I was on tour with a rock band. And somebody overheard me, and I was in my buddy's bar, and I didn't look like any of them because I looked like a rock star then. And he goes, I think you're full of shit. I said, why? He goes, you're from down the street and you're doing that. And I went, yeah. I go, oh, what do you think? Everyone's from like Hollywood? So what I learned was all successful people are just knuckleheads from somewhere. We're all folk.
Really?
Some people have something extra and different and special, but most of us, almost all of us, we're just knuckleheads from somewhere with greatness within. And that's what the master visionary is, to tap back into the master visionary within you. So
Right.
let's do that. You email me, tomnicoli@gmail.com. We're going to set up a call and I'm going to help you out.
Yeah, it's the same email that you sent me your
Yeah, I
the
sent
same
it out
email,
today.
right?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All
I
right.
will.
Excellent. I look
Thank
forward
you
to
so
that.
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So back to Gene's point, right? It's all about, this doesn't make sense. What is this BS I'm doing? Jesus, I came here to learn how to fight. Nah, there's a lot more before it, isn't there, Eric? There's a lot more that happens before we can actually jump into the arena.
Well, it's all training. If you look at it that way, everything that we do
Right?
moves us forward. And, I want to make one thing for Taz too, when he talked about, and I know you're going to work with him on that lack mindset, because that's a note that I made, was living in lack is terrible. When you said money's coming in one door and it's going out the other door.
Because I don't deserve it. I'm not worthy, and I got to get rid of it.
And it's also, you think money is finite. It's a finite resource. I'm only going to have this much, but that's not the case. The case
It's like
is
air.
right. You're going to have plenty, and you got to change that mindset. And it's about being the hero too. Like, we're all the hero of our own story, Taz. So you got to pick out what's going to make you your hero.
Mm-hmm.
And now getting to Gene with the Karate Kid analogy, which is great, is he felt this was stupid. What I'm doing is dumb. I'm just waxing your car. I'm painting the fence. I'm doing, and what he didn't realize was all of that was lessons coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, the way you have to look at life, is everything is a lesson. I've had stuff, silly things like somebody took a parking spot and I'm like, well, how dare they? And that was my spot. And you look at it like, okay, so what is that about? right? I mean, everything. I spilled something in the kitchen. What is that about? What am I learning here? So when you look at, and I guess we can call it the Karate Kid mentality. It's kind of fun. That everything that you're doing,
Just labeled our mentality.
yeah, exactly. Just the Karate Kid mindset is just everything is learning, everything is experience, everything gets you there, and that's why we have to continue on our hero's journey.
Well, let's listen to Gene. He has a question.
Sure.
Gene, come on in.
Yeah, I didn't really have a question. I just had the Karate Kid comment.
By the way, good to see you, man. Haven't seen you in a long time.
Ditto. So how's the new digs?
Fantastic. Fantastic. Gene is also in the profession of helping people change their lives. He's done some incredible work, and he's also the most technical genius I've ever met in my life, my God, which kind of goes hand in hand because we do the inner technical work as well as all that legit technical work you do. But Gene, why don't you share something where you have learned what you thought was a failure has actually helped you in some way where it was a lesson?
Well, I mean, there are many things throughout life, but I'll tell you one interesting story. I was learning to fly many years ago. I was about 18, 19 years old. And, I just had some money in my pocket and I had to burn it up, of course. So I'm taking flying lessons, and we went up, and my flight instructor said, this is a really rough day, a lot of wind and everything. And I said, well, I mean, if I'm going to learn to be a pilot, I have to learn how to handle good days and bad days. So I said, let's go up. And we went up, and right away, I mean, this plane was bouncing up and down so hard that it looked like it was flapping its wings. I mean, it looked like a seagull. It was just bouncing up and down like this. And, I get seasick, and I was getting really, really sick. And I'm flying along and doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and there's sweat coming down my face and everything. And all of a sudden, this voice crept in the back, and it's strange because this is before I did Tony Robbins, before I walked on coals, before I learned anything about NLP. I was already looking at the mind like a computer because I was into computers back at the time. I was doing that as a profession.
Right.
I started young. I did college while I was working instead of before. And I could see this thought. It was like creeping up into my brain. And as it was approaching my brain, the thought was, I have to get out of this airplane now. I have to get out now. And I could see the thought coming towards me. And I told the thought, stop, turn around. And it was a moment in my life that I'll never forget. I told it to stop. And I kept looking out the plane, and my instructor could see my face had turned white as like a sheet of paper. And she said, well, Gene, on a day like today, I don't think you're going to learn much. Maybe we should land. And I'm like, but, I said, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I was trying to be, like a pilot, right?
Yeah.
So we went into the pattern, and, like I realized that at that moment, it's not like a car where you could pull over the side of the road, or like even a boat, you could jump out and go for a swim. Out was death. And there was no way I could get on the ground for another 20 to 25 minutes because the pattern was full. There was only one runway open because of the weather, because of these very strong winds. And that pattern was stacked already. So we got in the pattern, and we did everything that we had to do, and I stuck the landing. And as soon as we pulled over and got out, my instructor said, how did you hold it together? Because I was expecting any second the entire dashboard to be just full of vomit. And I told her, I said, this thought came into my mind, and I told the thought no. And I stopped it. And I knew that like in 2 or 3 seconds more, that thought would explode into my brain and I would have no control.
It'd be panic, yeah.
yeah, so there was this panic attack coming,
Mm-hmm.
and I could picture it in my mind like a meta kind of situation
Mm-hmm.
where I'm looking at my brain and seeing its function and saying, "Oh no, this code is not good.
Right.
let's halt that code right there and let's go on with the rest of the code and come back." And she said she's seen people turn white as a ghost and either throw up or get sick or freak out. She's never seen anyone keep it together to get the plane back on the ground and then just like let it pass.
Excellent.
So and this is before training.
Mm-hmm.
So, I always give people this example that when thoughts are coming into your mind, you can interview those thoughts as if they are asking for a job.
Right.
And you could say, well, what are your qualifications? Why do you want to come into my brain? What is the benefit that you have to give me? And is this right for what I need right now?
Exactly.
And if it's not right, you could say, hey, stop.
Right.
This thought is not helpful, and please hold out.
Gene, thank you for that. And that ties in what we were saying before, what Eric was saying about growing up a certain way. That's the comfortable mind saying, oh, no, this is where you jump out. When the other part of us that's there, that only comes up when we need it in a challenge, says, no. Here's now how to think. Here's what to say. Here's what to do. So thank you for that, Gene. And what a harrowing freaking experience. My gosh. So Eric, isn't that tying it all in, in the same way, but in a different form? And it brings that thought back to what I was saying earlier about these CEOs, because these stress effects that you've seen on CEOs, like the stress effect of, Gene was experiencing that plane. Maybe they're not in a plane, but metaphorically, they're flying high. There's a lot on them, a lot of pressure. They're like, I can't just pull the plug on this project. I can't land the plane right here, right now. So, Eric, what happens when it's not dealt with from a leadership point of view? What happens when they let the thought come in and they don't tell it to stop?
Well, I always have a saying that is that your mind is your enemy. Your mind is your biggest enemy, right? And I have a thing that when I work with men, I call it, brains versus balls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really coming from here more than coming from here.
Yeah.
And whenever something comes in, those kind of thoughts, that stress comes in, it's about, where is this coming from? Is this coming from an ego that wants to be protected? Or is this coming from like a rational fear? Like a rational fear would be, I'm going to go rock climbing with no experience and only have a rope that can hold 50 pounds, right? That's a rational fear.
Yeah.
An irrational fear is, if I don't get this job done, the whole world's going to come to an end. Like it's going to be devastating to my life and my career.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take a look at, where is that fear coming from? Where are those thoughts coming from? Why is your mind running this?
Mm-hmm.
And that really comes down to you commanding your mind, not your mind commanding you. And that's when you need to step back and look. And that's when I tell guys, that fear can be fuel. That's where the courage steps in, right? I always quote John Wayne on his definition of courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. Right. So
that's the key to all of it.
It is. You have to have that courage. You have to look at where the fear is coming from.
Yeah.
Is it rational? Is it irrational fear?
Mm-hmm.
Is it self-preservation fear, or is it fear? Listen, there's many of us that have fear of success. Oh my God, I don't want to become too successful. What would that look like? Can I sustain it? What would I do with all that money? What would I do with all that fame and recognition? I don't, that's irrational fears. So you have to really take a look at it that way.
Like you just said, is the biggest one, isn't it? They think, well, all right, I get there, but now I got to keep it up. Getting there is not that difficult. Staying there. But
right,
then
sustaining it. Yeah.
Then we address that as a fear as well, don't we?
Sure. And that comes down to, for me, I'll speak on my own.
Mm-hmm.
For many of us, and like I said, for me, there's that, oh my God, am I really that talented? Oh my God, am I really that good? Or am I just a fake? Am I a phony? Am I just pretending and I just happen to get there, and can I keep it there? And so I think that I've found in a lot of the people that I've interviewed is a big thing also. Am I kidding myself that I can really do this? And when I get that success, and I see this with a lot of celebrities, like, oh, people love me and I'm in movies and I'm doing all this stuff and my career is taking off. But oh my God, I'm really this insecure, horrible person. I believe I'm a horrible person. I don't deserve all of this.
The
And then
imposter
it just
syndrome.
comes crashing down. And people always go, wow, why did that happen to them? They were so talented, so successful. Was that self-belief of deserving it and being worthy of it?
You know, we avoid the imposter syndrome by realizing I'm just a knucklehead that's doing what's inside of me. As Zig Ziglar once wrote on page 1 of one of his books, I am from the source of greatness, therefore I am great. The end.
Mm-hmm.
So that master visionary, that potential, that whatever people call it, the thing that breeds you. I tell people, or I ask them, how do you breathe? I'll wait. I don't know, I just breathe. What do you mean you just breathe? You don't know how you breathe even. So that's how consciously limited we are. But there's such greatness within us, you can call it whatever you want, that when you allow yourself to be and not get so noisy and busy doing, and you can then kind of connect with that, all of a sudden thoughts come, ideas come, awarenesses come, and you realize, like, as a musician, after 50 years, I mean, I better know how to play that guitar well. But when people go, oh my God, dude, I go, listen, the day I say I'm good, a 12-year-old will come and blow my doors off. So know what you're capable of and know there's even more and allow it to be. That's the key, right? When we're limiting ourselves with those thoughts, we're not allowing.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff's in there waiting to come up, just like that thought that Gene had. There wasn't a conscious thought. And he knows that. That was that greatness within me said, stop. But the conditioned us is the thought coming saying, jump out this plane. You know, we don't have a whole lot of time left, Eric, but I want you to share, and I know this is really unfair to ask you, but you talk about archetypes and you talk about, you know, a lot of the principles and bullet points in the work you're doing with the people of getting them from where they are to where they want to be. And please share what you feel are the most important points that people need to hear now.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, it's a totally fair question, Tom. I can do it in a few minutes and we can do a whole nother thing and get in depth on it. But it really is a very, very simple principle. I liken it to golf. Golf is a very simple game.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to master, but it's a very simple to understand game. Put the ball in the hole using a club. That's it. Simple.
Yeah, so try doing
it. Right, but then it's hard to master. And there are days when you have great golf games. And there are days when you want to snap your clubs in half and throw them in the lake. But it's the same thing with this. And so that's why I use the 4 archetypes, because it's very, very easy to understand for people, especially from a leadership standpoint. And then even on a life journey standpoint. Remember, we're on a hero's journey, which is why hero is the ultimate. But I'll explain it to you this way. So warrior, lover, king, queen, hero. So the warrior is that part of us, that beast within us, that natural innate drive that we have to move forward, right? That's our warrior. And our warrior, we'll call it the masculine energy that we all have. When I say that, don't think men, women, boy, girl. We all have masculine, feminine energy. Exactly. Millions of people have said this. So just take it from there. Mm-hmm. The warrior is our masculine energy. It's our drive. It's our ambition. And I have some words that kind of go along with this. You can see, but, you know, heroic, courageous, powerful, commanding, visionary, sovereign, which is what we talked about earlier about being independent and being your own person, invincible, successful, determined, committed, brave, unstoppable. Those are the things that get us moving forward.
Which could be any gender.
Any gender, doesn't matter. This is when I work men, women, and women. Let me tell you, when I work with female leaders, women leaders, who I believe make amazing, amazing, amazing leaders because they have the second part of this down. When I show them how to tap into that warrior in that positive way, it's very freeing because so many of them are told not to do that. But when you look at those words, committed, visionary, brave, determined, All of those things, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, we all have that.
Right.
Just we need to tap into that first to get things moving. So it's that warrior that gets us moving forward, right? And it's innate in all of us, and we can tap into that more and more. The second is the lover, and the lover is that divine feminine energy that we all have, and in this energy, that's what gets everything growing, right? That is that beautiful nurturing energy. And I'll give you some characteristics of a lover, which is wise. And again, that could be male or female, correct? That's not coming from a gender. So wise, supportive, generous, allowing, which we just talked about, inspiring, compassionate, abundant, creative, patient, playful, artistic, irresistible, willing. All of those things are what come in behind that drive and what make everything grow and flourish. So you've got to plow the land first before the seeds can grow and flourish, if you want to look at it that way. So that, remember, that warrior comes first. We follow and support with that lover, that divine feminine that makes everything grow and flow. And as a leader, if you're doing that, if you can integrate your warrior and your lover, if you can lead with that incredible, powerful warrior energy, support with that beautiful lover energy, that's when you become the king and the queen, right? That's when you truly become someone that people are going to follow, because you can give directives, you can create projects coming from, want to tap into that warrior, support with the lover. Now you're the king, the queen, and you're looking over, you're ruling your kingdom, queendom, your empire, as we'll say.
Yep.
And then finally is the hero. Now, when you are a king or a queen, you have tremendous ego. It's all about building your positive side of your ego. Because remember, yin yang, there's always positive, negative.
Yep.
You want to build the positive ego. Tom, if you didn't have a really great, big, positive ego, you wouldn't be doing the work you're doing. You wouldn't be doing the show. If I didn't have a big ego, I wouldn't have agreed to be on this show.
Right.
So you have to feed that. That's king and queen do that. But when you drop that ego, that's when you become the hero, because the hero is the one who does for others, selflessly for others. And that is the ultimate part of the journey, isn't it? We want to be able to become the king and queen, but then return as the hero.
And that's what creates your balance right there.
Correct. And to me, the biggest part of that hero is creating other kings and queens.
Yes.
So as a leader, what I tell people is, if you really want to succeed as a leader, your ultimate goal should be to create as many kings and queens and heroes around you as you can. That's when you truly drop your own ego and you become the hero.
That's right.
When you come from that space of, I want to make everybody who works with me, for me, alongside me, above me, better than they are now, and have them step into their king and queen, absolutely amazing things are going to happen in your life. Trust me, I know from experience.
Right on.
Why I do the work that I do. So you can remember warrior, lover, king, king, queen, hero in that order. You'll take leaps and bounds ahead. Trust me.
I couldn't have said that better. And that's really where it's at. You know, most people are, what can I achieve? What can I do? I.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, what can I do in order to propel more forward? It's my hypnosis instructor way back in 1999, he said, I became an instructor because I know what I know, but I want to be the hand that has all these fingers off of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same principle where I want to be able to influence as many people as I possibly can. Eric, before I leave everybody with a last message, where can people find more information about you and your work?
Yeah, there's a couple places. I mean, you can go to WLKHpodcast.com, WLKHpodcast.com, and you can listen to a lot of the interviews. It's a great place to start on there. And yeah, let's just leave it at that. Just go there. And then there's also the Complete Man Summit, CompleteManSummit.com, and that's where I interview almost 40 incredible men that are tops in their fields, and you'll get some really good insight around a lot of the stuff that we talked about today. So I think those two places are perfect. You can find me and jump on. They're all free. All of that is free. So just go in there and get as much value out of it as you can.
Excellent. I so appreciate you and everything you're doing, you know, and for being here, especially, and helping the people watching this.
Absolutely. Like I said, my honor, Tom. I love what you're doing, and I'm really just honored to be part of it.
Thank you. Thank you, man. Hey, folks, listen. Just like you saw Taz come in real time, Gene come in real time, we're able to help each other out and not have to wait for answers or forget that question and not get it. You can participate in the upcoming shows, which are every 2 weeks on Tuesday at noon Eastern time. Just go to mastervisionary.com and you'll see a button that you can click to be reminded of the schedule and the events. And also, any help that you feel you need in order to get out of yourself, as you've heard some of the limitations that are just a few of them that are all here. They're between the ears. It's almost, you could say the game of golf is like the game of life. And Jack Nicklaus had said, the game of golf is a game of inches and the most important 7 are between your ears. Well, that's the game of life. So when you manage what's going on internally, then you can manage what's going on externally. And that's what guys like Eric and I help people do. And just go to mastervisionary.com and then listen to Eric's podcast and all the wonderful information he has available. And you know this saying, you got to give to get. Well, look at all the giving that's going on. And I can only imagine the amount of hours you've amassed as you're allowing people to gain more information through the work you're doing. And you're the hand that has all those fingers. That's a beautiful thing. So folks, I want to thank you all. And Tim Barlin, thank you for being here. He made a comment of thanking us for the call. Taz, I look forward to talking with you. I'll check out the email you send me and we'll jump on that. But for now, folks, thank you for being here. My name is Tom Nicoli. That's Eric Rogell. And we'll see you next time around on From Stress to Success.
Thank you for watching the Master Visionary Show.
That was great, Tom.
Join us every other Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to remove the blocks that are keeping you from living a healthy, wealthy, and happy life.